intro? Saw
Right here.
earlier.
It's in the podcasters.
Oh, I see. Cool.
Yeah. Excuse me.
My Gaki is here.
Oh, we're live.
Wait, no one said we were live. What?
Yeah, she did. She said,
Off to a great start.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the scariest episode of Time Out with JSA ever. Get spooked with us as we dive into the depth of horror and answer questions from the audience. This week,
Ooh.
your fears with me, Leigh Wynn.
Me, Ramon Antonio.
And me, Vinny Truong.
All right, let's get started. Because, we're great at following cues, apparently. All right. So, do you guys want to start with anything before we jump into the questions?
I can introduce myself a little bit, right?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Cool. So, my name is Vinny Truong. I'm a third year at George Mason. My major is community health, and other orgs I'm a part of are VSA, KSA, and I'm in an org called Society of Asian Scientists and Engineers, or SACE, right? And I joined JSA near the beginning. I joined JSA my second semester here, but I became way more active in the fall semester previously. So my hobbies include I exercise every now and then. I've been practicing guitar. I draw occasionally, and I play Red Dead Redemption. And yeah,
Oh my god, yes.
I got the game like last week, so I've been playing it like nonstop.
Wait, so like for the first time ever?
Ever, yeah. The second one.
Pretty solid, yeah.
Have you I know you're saying you just got it this week, so have you looked at Red Dead Unredemption or Undead Redemption?
I can't say I have, unfortunately.
Okay, when you finish Red Dead Redemption, get Undead Redemption and
Yeah, you gotta check it
enjoy
out.
killing zombies as a cowboy.
Really?
On top of that, a little side note, you know how in Red Dead Redemption you get to like lasso horses and blah 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 and like
Yeah.
make them your own? You get the apocalypse horses. And if you collect all 4 of the horses of the apocalypse, you get a unicorn.
Whoa!
That's pretty dope.
That's so cool. I'll check that out.
On top of that, you can be responsible for putting Sasquatch in extinction, and you get to hunt the chupacabra. So very on theme, I think, because that's all scary stuff. But yes, I encourage that.
Wild.
All right,
Ramon.
Okay, that's for me. I'm Ramon. I'm I guess I'm a senior. I'm majoring in computer science, and I'm more or less exclusive to JSA. I was a commuter student for the first semester. Well, I was a transfer student from Nova, I guess, but I didn't really know anyone going into, Mason as a transfer student. But Peter was my TA for a class, and he sort of roped me in, literally just walking along campus during the recruitment fair or whatever it is, and we made eye contact. It's really hard to do as a CS major. Let me tell you. And he's like, "Hey, I know you," so he just pulls me in, and I was like, "Okay."
I have heard that making eye contact with Peter can be detrimental, so
yeah,
don't feel too bad.
It was hard, yeah. But in any case, he roped me in, and I figured, I wanted to give club campus life a shot. So the people at JSA have been really awesome, and I don't regret it one bit. So shout outs to Peter for snagging me in here. In terms of hobbies, CS majors, though, I code. I really like cooking. Aside of that, well, I guess I like eating, but I like making good food so that I can eat it. And
That's
then
fair.
other than that, yeah, right. And then I don't know. I play a lot of games. I like competitive games. See me in Smash or I guess Valorant, but yeah, that's me.
I like you. You seem cool.
Thank.
Yeah, I've heard stories of Peter's kidnapping antics, and I'm actually starting to feel a little jealous. I think I'm the only person who was not kidnapped and brought into JSA by Peter. It's
Hey,
like,
I'm the other person, you know.
oh,
I
thank
could-
you. You know what? We'll create a club, just you and me, the
Yeah.
outside. All right. So, what do you guys think about horror before we jump into the questions? Are you like pro horror? Are you against horror? Are you like horror neutral?
I used to be such a pussycat when it came to horror, right? I used to be so scared of anything that like touched like horror movies, especially games and stuff like that. But it wasn't until like high school I started to really like enjoy it, right? And up until very recently, I started to, dive into horror games and whatnot. So yeah, I like it,
Horror games can be really intense. I have a very
I agree.
in-depth background in horror. I've been into horror since probably I could read, which I
Mhm.
started reading at 2 years old. So my mom handed me a Goosebumps
Damn,
and
nice
said,
flex.
"Go for it." Yeah. You know? So, but horror games are scary.
I agree. I'm playing my second horror game ever, like right now. So
That's right. You stream Outlast, right?
yeah. So occasionally I play Outlast 2, right? And people kind of like, for those who don't know, I stream it for the JSA Discord, right? So they'll see me play it. I'll just go about my life, just playing Outlast 2. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's terrifying too, so that's cool.
Yeah, I believe it. Horror games for me, I could never get into them. I love horror media. I like I guess I also started with the Goosebumps books. And
Mhm.
just like that creeping, like, what's behind that curtain kind of thing, what's in the shadows, like the unknown stuff. I
It's the
love it.
gateway drug. It's the gateway drug.
Yeah, absolutely. Horror movies, I really like horror movies. Like, I'm sort of in the same boat as Vinny, where well, I'm still, I guess I'm still a pussycat, but I love the adrenaline rush.
Yeah.
So that's amazing. Horror games though, I can't do it. Like, I can do like, horror action games, some like, I don't know, like Killing Floor and Killing Floor 2. That's kind of fun. Left 4 Dead
Mhm.
was kind of cool. Survival horror, I can't do it. Just like, I can do horror movies because I get immersed into it and everything. But at the end of the day, if the person who is the camera's following dies, that's not up to me. But for survival horror, oh god, that's too stressful for me. I can't do that.
Right.
Agreed. So we kind of glossed over the first question here, asking, do you prefer horror movies, books, or games? But if
Mhm.
you want to give like a solid answer, what is it? Movie, books, or games, guys? Like,
Uh,
you have to choose. This is a life or death question. You can only pick one.
okay. So overall, I pick games, right? Because I've played horror games with people and I've watched horror movies with people, right? And I've enjoyed my experiences when I play it, right? So because like it's more interactive, right? And it kind of immerses you more than like a movie would, right? Because it is you experiencing it, right?
Right? Yeah.
Things are happening to you, not to the characters you see on the screen.
Yeah.
And so when you kind of have like everyone be around you and experience that as well, it's kind of a nice like moment to share. And it's also like, a lot less, terrifying, so I can actually go on and play the game.
Okay, I can get behind that.
Yeah,
Horror
I can
movie,
respect that.
right. With horror movies, it's kind of like, oh, you sit there and a family is just being silly, right? And they do stupid things, and occasionally, like you'll have like a horror movie that's like actually really well done, right? But
Mhm.
I haven't watched enough to say like I know for sure. I've seen like a handful of horror movies, but yeah, games for sure.
Okay.
Hmm.
Ramon.
I think for me, I definitely have to say horror movies. I realized, I think it was last semester, that I like horror movies a lot. I guess I haven't seen as many as um, other people out there. I took like a global horror film class, and I went in and just the intro couple of like sections, we'd have, oh yeah, what's your favorite horror movie? And then like I'd name something super generic, and people are like, oh yeah, that one's okay, I guess. But here's this list of things that are like, oh my god, like this is like super cool. So
Right.
the first couple weeks were a little bit rough. It's like, oh, I'm a complete newbie to horror movies. Like, I love it and everything. So it was cool getting to hear everyone else's like, recommendations and being exposed to I guess, horror movies and not English, because I guess for the longest time I don't know, I just was ignorant to everything out there. But after that class, I gained a really big appreciation for them in terms of like the structure of them, the underlying meanings, all that stuff. So horror movies are my definite, number one in terms of horror media.
Mhm.
I am right there with you. I adore horror movies. I think at least in my opinion, I like the fact that there's such a wide variety of them that
Yeah.
you can say you like horror movies, but then you have to like define, do you like thriller movies? Do you
Right.
like the mind mess movies? Do you like the slasher movies? And I'm like, I like them all.
Right.
I can appreciate them all on such different bases. And one of the things I really appreciate since 2000 is that they've included comedy in horror movies now. And I'm like, yes, thank you, please.
Right.
So it's really become, and it's also talking about the structure. There's something nice about how there is a formula to it, and yet you can subvert that formula. You can mess with it. You can create it your own. You can get horrible B movies. You can have like your traditional vampire movies, or you can take that vampire movie and turn it into the like worst horror movie of all time, Twilight. You can do a lot with horror movies, so I just really enjoy them a lot. I think I also enjoy horror books, but I think they're for the same kind of purposes. But at the same time, as much as you can get deeply absorbed into a book, sometimes they take too long, and then you're just kind of like drawing out something when you're just like, just scare me already, please.
Right.
Yeah, I feel that.
There was this one horror movie I've seen. It was pretty recent. It's like a horror thriller, but it had comedy as well. It's called Cabin in the Woods. I don't know if you guys have
I love that movie. Yeah.
Right. So like to anyone who's like really scared of like horror stuff, give this one a shot because it kind of like introduces the vibe of it, but they somehow like sew in comedy into it, and it doesn't feel so out of place. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they did such like when people think of horror comedy, they think of the Scary Movie series, and you're like,
Right.
essentially that's comedy making fun of horror, but it's horror comedy because there's still the elements, the structure and the elements and the uses of what you would find in a regular horror movie.
Right.
It's comedy. Where Cabin in the Woods took a horror movie and they made fun of it, but in a way where you're like, this is still a horror movie. This is
Right, like a parody. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
It's
funny that you say that because like I'd always heard like Cabin in the Woods is like kind of like I said, like a parody kind of thing, like, without going too much into spoilers on it. But like,
Yeah.
I don't know, just hearing it as a
to minimum because that would just destroy it.
Right.
Yeah, hearing it as almost like as a starter movie, like I can see it. I can get behind that in terms of like it introducing like the kinds of things that you will see in horror movies. So
Right.
I almost regret like not being able to see that as a first horror movie because I'd really like to see the perspective on that.
Right. Yeah. It would kind of. I think it would make the transition for someone who's so scared much easier. You know what I mean? That's
Definitely, yeah.
It's just fun. It's a lot of fun, and there's a lot of action as well. So, for those who haven't seen it, give it a shot.
Yes, please do, and don't mistake it for Cabin Fever, which is just nasty and horrible.
Not the same movie.
Should be taken off the market and spared. It's not even. They claim it's a horror movie. It's just a waste of time.
Oh, I've never seen it before, so I can't say.
Don't. No. Don't. I'm pre-warning you. That's one of the ones you wish people would give you spoilers on, so that you didn't have to sit there for 2 hours and realize I just totally wasted a piece of my life.
Right.
All right. So, what's the scariest piece of horror media you have ever seen?
So I'm a little biased right now. So right now, I think Outlast 2 is pretty terrifying to me at the moment. Right, especially not getting too much into spoilers. There's sections where the main character like has flashbacks back in high school, right? And so you walk around this like abandoned high school at like 10 or 11 at night, right? With like every other lights that are on. And it feels so real because like I know what being in high school is like, right? And the attention to detail is so well done, right? I almost hate it. The study rooms, the library, the clocks, the posters on the wall. like the company is Red Barrels, and they did so much research. I can tell. Like I zoom in on the tests, like the papers, and they're actual like history tests, right?
Yo, that's wild.
That's wild.
Wow.
Like it's talking about the Renaissance.
That's where the horror comes from. You think you're playing a game, you're actually taking a test.
Right.
That's amazing.
Right. That's the scary part, not the fact that there's someone chasing you. But yeah, that's me right now. I think video games, especially Outlast at the moment, is kind of scaring me right now. So, what about you guys?
Leigh, you go ahead. I'm still thinking.
Oh, okay. So I would have to say the scariest piece of horror media I have ever been forced to encounter was the human centipede.
Oh my god, I've never seen that before. How is it?
Well, it's scary AF is what it is.
Okay.
But not in like it's it's something that you sit there and you think, "Oh my god, someone actually had to come up with this idea. I'm now scared of humanity."
Oh, so it's like a meta scary kind of thing.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
like the fact that the movie ever exists, the fact that there's a human being out there that came up with this plot
Right,
Mhm.
right.
scares me. I mean, and then on top of that, they made a sequel. So that
I
means
heard
enough
about that, yeah.
people had to like it to want to warrant the sequel, which is even scarier. I mean, it's really hard to explain this movie without spoiling it. So if you want to see it, then I don't want to spoil it for you, but to tell you what's truly terrifying about it would be a massive spoiler. So
That's fair. That's
yeah,
fair.
it's kind of a survival horror movie in a sense that people get kidnapped and they have to survive. But the situation they're put into is it's mind-numbingly terrifying.
Right, yeah.
I'm looking at images of it on Google right now as we speak, and let me just tell
Yo,
you.
you better have safe search on because I don't want to see any of that.
It's okay, it's okay.
Oh no.
Needless to say, right? I haven't seen it, but I can kind of imagine what Lee is talking about.
Yeah.
Oh.
Unfortunately, I'll give it a shot. I'll watch it. I'll let you guys know.
Good luck to you. That's a hard pass for me. After I heard the description for it, I was like, oh yeah, no, I think I can find better ways to spend my time. Watching paint dry is gonna be kind of nice.
Yeah. Honestly, it was probably I watched it when it first came out, so it's probably been about 10 years, and I'm still thinking to myself, how did this happen to me? Like,
Right.
how? What did I do so wrong that this was born something something that happened to me?
For horror movies, I think for me, well, I guess horror media in general, still, I'd say what has to take the cake for me is like the original like American release of The Ring.
Mm,
I think I rewatched it once, since it first came out, but I was like super young at the time, and I'd watched it, and all I did like before watching it was like watch TV and everything. But I like distinctly remember after getting through that movie, and this was my parents like, "Oh, cover your eyes," kind of thing. This is super scary. You don't want to see this. Super
yeah.
graphic.
Okay.
But even then, like, not seeing all the super graphic scenes, it just scared the crap out of me. Like, I don't. I think my parents told me that I didn't watch TV for like a solid 2 months after.
Wow.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
like as a kid, just when that's the only thing you have to do, basically, like that was pretty crazy to me. So in terms of like, I guess long-lasting effects, The Ring is up there. Otherwise, the most recent scary movie or scariest piece of media I've seen is I think it's called Sinister.
Oh,
I
I
remember,
love Sinister.
yeah,
I've been wanting
and
to
like
One or two.
I think the first one. I don't think I've seen the second one.
It's so good.
Because like it's just like again like no spoilers or anything, but there are like what I what really got to me is like it's not like a jump scare factor, but just like the chilling like the same idea as like someone having created the human centipede, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But with those videotapes,
Mhm.
Mhm.
the home movies. Oh my god, like that kind of like the idea behind that just sat with me for the longest time.
Yeah,
right.
I love. See, that's the kind of horror movies I actually really do like. The Conjuring series, Sinister, those kind of movies where they don't rely solely on jump scares. You actually said a really good point is the fact that your parents during The Ring was trying to cover your eyes during scary moments, and it made it more terrifying. Nothing is more terrifying than leaving something to the human imagination.
Right. Yeah, the unknown. That's wild.
Yeah, that's why like movies that rely on jump scares, I'm like, yeah, it was good. It was entertaining. It's forgettable at the end. You know, it's like,
Right.
okay, I had a good time. The
Mhm.
real horror movies are the ones like Sinister, where they're like, you can't escape us.
Right.
Yeah.
I just want to go off and say I absolutely love the first Conjuring movie.
Oh
I
yeah.
love it. Yeah, the second one was like major letdown in my opinion. Right?
That's what I've heard, yeah.
What's up?
The third one was better than the second one, that's for sure.
There's a third one.
There's a fourth one.
Was that the
What?
prequel or is that something else?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure Conjuring made it up to 4. If Yeah, because I'm thinking of the keys, and then his like son or son's daughter is in the fourth one, which was okay. The first and the third one were amazing. And then if you're thinking of the Conjuring series in general, oh no, wait, I'm thinking of Insidious. Skip it. Never mind.
Classic.
Has 4 movies. The Conjuring has 2.
Whoops.
My bad.
I'll be watching. Oh my gosh! Yeah, Insidious. Yeah, this one.
Uh-huh.
I want to watch this one as well.
I love it. I did enjoy the Insidious series since that one got brought up accidentally. My bad, guys. Yeah, 1 and 3 were the better ones. 2 and 4 were like, okay.
Okay, I see.
They were basically 2 hours of exposition for 1 and 3.
Right. Okay, I see. There's like this one like soundtrack in Insidious that sounds way too similar to like a SpongeBob soundtrack. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? You know?
Yeah.
Like,
I feel like I know what you're talking about, yeah.
right, because I've never even seen Insidious. I just, when I first listened to it, I'm like, oh, this is SpongeBob. And some people are like, no, this is Insidious. I'm like, oh, okay. I understand. So I'll check that out.
Yeah, movies. I think they actually do that on purpose in horror movies, is because some people like to take something innocent, or especially if it's something popular from your childhood, and
Yeah.
then twist it and make it different. And even if you recognize it at the time when you're watching the movie, you might subconsciously recognize it, but your brain's like, I recognize this, but something's wrong. So it actually insinuates a feeling of uncomfort while
Right.
you're in the process of watching something that's supposed to be scaring you. So it
Right.
kind of gives an extra layer to help the movie produce this like
Yeah, I feel
feeling.
that like it builds on it kind of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. It's there's something about like when you see something that's supposedly innocent, but there's something off. Like maybe the soundtrack is just a little more like insidious than like the image would provide. Because like when you see something that's just like straight up scary, it's at least like telling you, hey, I'm not your friend, right? I'm not someone you want to be like near with, right? But when you see something that's very comforting, or that's supposed to be comforting, but something's off about it, it's trying to let your guard down. And that very thing is very aware, right? Of like what makes you feel better. It's like if you see like a teddy bear with like human teeth smiling,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right?
The whole uncanny valley effect
That's
thing.
that's exactly why when you see those childhood toys, like let's say Annabelle, or that doll carriage that just randomly moves by itself across the hallway, that scares the heck out of you. For all you know, like at your house, some kid could have pushed a doll carriage and like, oh, that freaking kid is throwing his toys around again. But when you see it like that, you're like, this isn't right. Something's
Right, yeah,
supposed to be right about this. There's a element that's supposed to be right, but it's not. And then you're on edge now because you just don't know why.
Right.
That's like the biggest element in any story that you can have, is like keeping the suspense going on and always making the audience ask, why is this happening and what's about to happen?
Right.
And horror movies do that so well, or they do it really, really badly.
Right. Any horror medium can like get inside your head. Very well done, I think. Right?
Yeah.
Because you're not safe in your head, you know?
No, if they
Yeah,
get
that's
into
scary
your
too.
head, you're like we said, your imagination could be your worst enemy, and if they can get into it, then that's it. You're done.
Cool. Yeah, for sure.
If you are in a horror movie, though, where you die,
Okay.
how would you like to die?
Hmm.
Oh, what I liked. Oh, okay.
How would you want to be killed? How would you like? And I can answer that one right away,
Go ahead.
quickly.
Yeah,
Okay.
honestly, it doesn't matter how, as long as it's quick. Something instant, maybe in my sleep, like.
Right. Right.
There are the people who get chased through the woods and shot or stabbed, and they're like crawling through the woods and they're like trying to fight. And then there are those people who get stabbed in the back of the head without even knowing what's happening and they're dead. And that's the person I want to be.
Right. Right. I'll say that, but I want like a kill count at least, right? Like maybe I want to take out one or two things before I, get taken out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, I'm not just like some. Oh, he just dies, right? Oh, scary, right?
Mhm.
I want there to be like a, oh, I'm winning and then I lose kind of thing, right? It needs to be
Yeah.
yeah.
No,
Oh, really? You want that? Oh,
Yeah.
that's for me. That's just like that's almost. I want to say worse, just because like having that that faint glimmer of hope, and then having that crushed.
Right.
That
Oh,
to me
okay,
is like
I see.
that's also like a fear in and of itself. Like, ooh, yeah, I don't know. For me, that's a no go.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
In terms of
Yeah.
like how I want to be killed, like there's so many, I guess, like horror movie tropes of like serial killers. Okay, sure, like apocalyptic stuff. Okay, definitely not zombies. Zombies like zombies being like just mindless, brainless, walking at you to kill you kind of thing. That's fine. The idea of that's fine. The whole
Okay.
like body horror and cannibalism scares the living crap out of me. So I don't want to be eaten alive.
Mm.
And probably the other one is I don't want to burn to death. Everything other than that is probably okay. So
I
maybe
don't.
buried alive.
I don't want to drown.
Yeah, that goes along with the same thing. Almost like it's like claustrophobia, but in the water.
Right.
That's what I feel.
I actually agree with you guys. The whole burned alive, eaten alive, buried alive, drowning, it really like brings it down to the concept of not having the ability to fight back. Those are all like these elemental concepts where you want to fight back, but you have no choice but to submit to your own death, and that's terrifying.
Yeah,
Like at least with other things, like if you are trying to fight the bad guy, you can fight the bad guy and I lost, this sucks. But when you're being burned or drowning or something, like you're fighting nature at that point, and it's like I'm not gonna win.
Right. Right.
yeah. That's I don't know. Just for me personally, that's that like that hope being just dashed out is frightening.
Yeah.
Mm. Ooh.
What's the scariest scariest experience? I can talk. No, I can't. I'm sorry, guys. What's the scariest experience you've ever had that's still unexplained today? One day, my scariest experience is that I can't read, and one day I hope to read. Here we go.
You guys can answer first. I want to think about my answer.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. So, hmm.
Scariest experience for me was it was one night where I think it was my first semester at Mason, where it was the fall semester, and I was still a commuter at the time. So me and my girlfriend Grace were studying at the study rooms in Fenwick, and like our classes ended at 4, and we would be there until like freaking midnight, just studying things. So when we would get out, it was like pitch black. Just no light basically. I mean, there's like lights on campus, but in some places there's just nothing. So we'd be walking from like Fenwick all the way to like Lot K where we would park, and going down the staircase, going down to where, oh God, the observatory tower and like the engineering building is. Going
Mhm.
down that staircase. Um, this is like fall semesters. This was October. This is like peak Halloween hours kind of thing. There was no one around, and we were walking down the stairs, and out of nowhere we hear like this like really really loud grating like metal whirring noise, and that scared the absolute shit out of us, like not gonna lie, like holy crap. Like it was one of those like horror movies where you get the fight or flight reaction, and it's like I'm going to die. Like there's a serial killer behind me with a freaking chainsaw, and he's about to kill me. And like we took off down that way, and it was just like, once you realize like, okay, you're not in any immediate danger, you sort of like have that human reaction to sort of laugh it off nervously. But like, I'm pretty sure it was like one of the trash compactors or something. I don't know. I don't know why it was going off that late at night, but it was like right below the staircase and to the left, in the little corner over there. That's where it was. And as we were walking down the stairs, and that just goes off, and that was probably the most frightening thing. Where I was like, I honestly felt where I was about to die.
Mm,
That is kind of scary.
that's terrifying. Yeah. What about you, Leigh?
I'm still thinking about it. I think it's a little intense to say because it could give people the wrong idea. But
Okay.
sometimes I swear to God, I hear voices, but they're
Okay.
like little whispers when something's bad's about to happen or something weird's about to happen. So like you don't even really, I can't even really like say I hear voices because they're not like tangible words or something, but it feels like someone's whispering in my ear, and I'll turn in that direction and oops, I almost got hit by a car. And if I
Right.
hadn't at that time, then if I hadn't like turned, if I hadn't gotten that like sixth sense, I guess you could say,
Okay.
then I probably would have been squashed. And I would think, okay, that's just a guardian angel or something out there to protect you. I'm like, no, it's freaking terrifying. Like, this is not some nice, warm, hey, look out for that car. This is like a cold chill about to run down your back kind of thing. And I'm like, I don't know why you're doing this to me, but thank you and stop.
Yeah, it sounds like a cursed like power almost, just like, oh my god, like, yeah, the whole idea of like thank you, but oh god, that's frightening. Like,
Right.
Yeah. Like sometimes the more frightening thing is the feeling of the voice, or like again, it's really hard to explain because like it's a hearing, it's like a whisper, but it's not really a full-fledged voice. And like the feeling that gets left behind, I'm like, I can feel like my skin prickling and my hair staying on edge, and I'm like
Right.
really nervous for the next hour, and I have to like remind myself to calm down. It's a good thing because I didn't get squashed by a car, or I didn't
Right.
walk down this dark alley, or
Uh-huh.
I caught my dog before they ran off into the woods. But at the same time, it's like really unsettling.
Wait,
definitely, yeah, sounds like it.
how often do you hear these?
Honestly, it can vary. One time when I was living in Philly, I once
Okay.
had it for like I could hear it a couple times a day,
That's
and then,
crazy.
yeah, and then it goes away, and sometimes I don't hear it for months. But I also dream of dead people, so
Okay.
yeah, that's a thing.
Um,
Like if someone dies, they come to my dreams, and I'm like, hello,
right. Okay.
That's
hi.
wild. Yeah.
Yeah. And
That's
I have genuine conversations with them, and they're not like repeat conversations. It's not like some like I'm remembering conversations. It's like a totally new conversation with someone who's died, and I'm like, cool.
whoa, that is crazy. And like, wow, I can only imagine how you'd feel.
I mean, the dream part's kind of okay because I never wake up scared. You
Right.
know,
It's just a
the
conversation.
whisper part leaves a sensation of fear in me.
So like do you hear like the distinct words, or can you just know the intention and you kind of piece together what they're trying to say?
In my dreams,
Or
distinct.
like when you hear the voices.
Oh no, that's like more of an intention. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, I can get behind that. Mm, I see. For me, mine's not scary like at all. Like especially not to the extent of what you described, Lee, right? But it certainly was like unexplainable, right? And so you know how like when you look back on like certain things when you're younger, you couldn't explain one thing, but now that you're older, you kind of like understand better, right?
Mhm.
This is one of those times where I still can't like wrap my head around it, right? So it was around like early elementary school. I was in ESOL, right? And I had this friend of mine tell me she could like read minds, right? And I was like, oh, okay, you're funny, right? She's
Right.
like,
Yeah.
"No, I'm serious, right? I was like, think of something. And I thought she was like just pulling my leg, right? I thought she was just, being silly or stupid. It's like, okay, fine. So I thought of like a very specific sentence that only I could like know or think of, right? And she repeated it word for word.
Yeah.
That's it. Like it's not scary. And I just, I asked her like how she did, and she's like, I'm not telling you, right? And so like I thought about what if I just remembered that wrong, right? I couldn't think about it. But I asked her about that moment again, like middle school. So it was like much, much later, right?
Mhm.
And she acted really strange. She's like, no, 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 that was me. Or like, no, 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 I never did that, right? So it was, I don't know, like that's about it. Nothing scary happened from it, right? Unfortunately. I wasn't like spooked out of my mind. It was just more like, okay, maybe
That actually does kind of scare me. The fact that there could be people out there reading people's minds. Because first off, that's my space.
Mhm.
Stay out of my space.
Yeah,
Like,
that goes
I
along
like-
the whole thing. Where like horror movies and scary things that stay with you after it's over.
Right.
Mhm.
Like, yeah, that they're in your head. That's the scary part. That's like you said, your space. Like that's your safe space kind of thing.
Right. Right. The thing is too, I'm not like one to believe in like I like conspiracy theories, but I don't really believe in them, right? It's just, oh, that's neat, right? I don't think people like there are people who should read minds. It's just when I think back to this moment, I just can't explain it. Maybe my sentence wasn't as specific as I thought or unique, right? But I don't know. I think back on it occasionally. I'm like, huh, right?
No, I mean, I get that would put me on edge too. I would be thinking back on that. If nothing
Yeah,
else,
it's super unsettling. Like, yeah.
I still remember the chick's name, so like I can just I can just be like, hey, remember that one time in like second grade, right? Like, I can just hit her up on Facebook if I want, but it's whatever.
What's that magician's name? David Blaine. Are you like David related to him or something? Like, tell me now.
Some
It's
Chris
been
Angel
long
mind
enough.
freak stuff or anything, yeah.
But yeah, that's my unexplainable event that happened to me. Not very scary, but it's kind of spooky at the time. But it's not like I hear voices or anything like that, or I hear metal scratching, pitch black.
Yeah,
night, so
I hear voices, guys.
um,
That's gonna get around. I just know it. Okay. What's the scariest thing you can think of and try to describe it as spooky as you can?
uh, the scariest
That's
thing
double hard.
that is double hard. Can I just describe like I maybe I can just tell what my parents have told me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, go for
So
it.
my parents come from Vietnam, and they've told me very sparingly, but they're like, yeah, Vietnam's very haunted, right? I'm like, okay, and so I have like one or two stories of like what my mom and dad have told me, like what they experienced, right? Um, it's not it. I'm not gonna try to like exaggerate anything to make it scarier than it is. I'm just gonna tell it how they told me, right?
Sorry, guys.
No, you're good. You're good. My dad, he would be like, this is when he was a kid. He would be like studying, like reading a book, like in his room, right? And he would like feel tapping on his shoulder, right? And he was sitting in a corner of a room, right, facing towards the wall, right? So he would feel tapping, and then he would think it's my aunt, right, his sister. So he's like, "Yo, piss off, right? I'm trying to read, right, without looking." And then it just kept on happening. It was like a soft tap, right? And he's like, "Leave me alone. I'm trying to read, right?" And from his left, there's a wall, and he saw and felt a hand grab his arm, like his wrist, right? And it made him jump, right? And there wasn't like a window; it was just like a wall. It was like a wooden wall, right? Um, but it wasn't like so scary. It's just like something that's happened to my dad, and that's what he's told me, right? And the fact that I don't think he would have like a reason to lie about it
Right.
could be scary, right? I think anyone who has no reason to lie but has something unexplainable anyways is really fascinating. I find a lot of entertainment in that, right?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Not to downplay my dad's story or saying he's lying. I don't think he's lying, right? But yeah, and I had to like almost pry that story out of him because this I went through like a horror phase, right? And I was like, yo, dad, do you have any more? And he's like, no, I don't want to think about it. Right? I was like, okay, fine, right. So I've left him alone.
Oh
But yeah,
man, I love. I enjoy hearing those kind of stories from people. I would not have left him alone. I probably would have grounded like my entire childhood because I'd be like, more, give me more.
Right.
right. Oh, I'll probably ask my mom and dad tomorrow. Hopefully, I can get a new story. But yeah, what about you guys? What's something that you can think or describe and make it as spooky as you can?
So you go for it. I got nothing.
Let's see here. Something spooky that I can describe. Aside from hearing voices.
Yeah, that was pretty good. I can't imagine you describe anything creepier than that.
Yeah, it ties into that previous question really well.
I mean, I guess I could kind of go forward and say that sometimes I don't know if it has anything to do with the quote unquote voices. I'm gonna call them whispers from now on. I really don't like repeating that I hear voices. I hear whispers, damn it.
Right.
Aside from that, I have been known to kind of get drawn towards death a little bit on
Okay.
the sense where I've saved people's lives twice from drowning and once from someone being trapped when I was hiking. Someone a kid was trapped in some place and they couldn't find the kid and I was able to find them. And I was like little, okay. I'm not talking like this was me as a high schooler. I'm probably like barely out of elementary school when this happened and we were on a Girl Scout troop
Okay.
and one of the younger scouts, the brownies, had gone missing. And by the time they found her, because she was missing for a couple hours, I finally found her and she was like trapped, but like apparently she'd gone around these rocks and stuff and slipped in. And they got her and they took her to the hospital and check her out and stuff. And they came up to me and they said, if you hadn't found her within the next hour, she would have died. And I was like, I don't even know why I was there. It was literally the other side of where my troop was camping.
Right.
And that was the same thing that happened with this girl who was drowning in a lake. She got stuck. There was this lake where I used to live that they'd put like those giant floaty things, and they had like an island in the middle, and it was like, super lifeguarded, and everyone was there. But this 5-year-old got stuck underneath one of those giant floaty things, and no one could find her. And again, I'm on the other side of the lake. I'm probably 6
Okay.
because this was back before I moved to Woodbridge, so I was still really young. And all of a sudden, I'm taking off like across the beach, literally swimming across the lake. My mom screaming after me, "Where are you going? Where are you going?" I dive under this giant whale and come back up with this kid. I have
That's
I
freaky.
have a visual disability, guys. I can't see 3 feet in front of my face.
Okay.
But I was able to find a kid in a lake. This is not like a crystal clear pool or anything. In a lake under a floaty that was like yards away from me.
Right.
And we were like, so it's like this weird thing where it's like I just home in on someone or something that's about to die.
Wow. Do
Yeah.
you still like keep in contact with that child?
No.
No.
I did not. Again, we were really young at the time.
Okay.
Her mom was obviously freaking out and kind of took her home that
Yeah, I
day.
believe it. Holy crap.
For the brownie person, she went to the hospital and they were like, yeah, we sent her home and stuff like that because she was with her troop and stuff. So, it's not like I've ever stayed in contact with people, but these are just like things that happened to me.
Mhm.
And I'm like, that it always like kind of scared me and yet fascinated me at the same time. Like, I don't know how I knew how to look at these places. Again, I have a visual disability. I really cannot see to the point where they took away my driver's license.
Right.
But I'm able to find and like locate and do these things that normal people, adults, could not do.
Right, yeah. That's crazy.
Mm,
I don't know. Maybe
that's
I got
so
my
insane.
own private angel of death chilling out with me.
I guess for me, the scariest thing I can think of is kind of biased towards me because I guess I've experienced it. I was like I was 5 years old, and it was like my first time. My parents took me to visit family in the Philippines, and one of them had a pool, and I almost drowned. Just I was a I was like I said, 5 years old, just swimming around, doing my own thing, and I was climbing up a ladder, I think it was, and I fell backwards. And it's like, you know how like you have that. I don't know if it's just like memories or while it's in the moment where you see things in slow motion, you realize something is going wrong, but
Right.
it's like you can't do anything about it. You're just your mind is racing, and like I I needed to do something. I don't know what to do. Even if I wanted to do something, I can't do anything. And just like seeing like my 5-year-old world sort of literally go underwater and not being able to do anything, that feeling of helplessness was terrifying. And it was just me and my cousin at the pool at the time.
Mhm.
She was like a few years older than me. Um, but like I don't know, consciousness and I think it was consciousness and a mixture of it being so long ago and sort
Right.
of maybe repressing the memory where I don't remember too much of it, but I would blank in and out, and I remember it was like I don't know, you can't see too far ahead of you underwater. It was blue. It was just bright blue, just maybe like it could have been endless. In reality, it was like maybe like 5-6 feet away from me, the wall kind of thing. But I what felt like an eternity of just not being able to breathe, not being able to move, not knowing what to do. All I can see is blue, and I like blink, and then I open my eyes again, and luckily she had dove in after me, and she
Mhm.
got me back up. But I guess that sort of shapes my experience of helplessness. I don't know, it happened a couple. It was like a year later in terms of like not being able to breathe, not knowing, not being able to do anything. Like I used to suffer from like kind of severe asthma as a kid. Luckily, it's not bad anymore. But having an asthma attack like uh, turn of the millennium,
Mhm.
um, also pretty frightening.
Mm.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's me.
Right. Right. Okay.
It's amazing how the human experiences can be, especially the unexplained ones, can be even more terrifying than, say, running through the woods away from a serial killer.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Because at least
Maybe if that was something that's actually happening to me, I'd like have a different thought. But you know, those are really intense moments, and they can really shape and terrify people.
right. Right. Yeah. Because like I feel like a part of what makes things a little less scary is if you know what's you're dealing with or what you're experiencing, right? So if you add like aspects of whatever experience you're going through with like the unknown, it's very, very scary. So
Yeah. I mean, like, that's what makes horror movies so entertaining and so popular to begin with, is the fact that at the beginning of the movie, you are dealing with this unknown entity, this unknown, thing. I don't care if it's Jason or the thing from the Dark Lagoon, a vampire, an immortal girl that gets chopped up and regenerates itself. It's
right.
a thing that you're faced with that you don't understand. But then halfway through the movie, they have what I like to call the research moment,
Right.
where after being terrified for so long, something happens. A old reporter reaches out to you and says, "Well, did you know what happened in this house?" Or a neighbor, or someone's just like, "I'm going to go check on the archives and see if anyone else has ever had to deal with this." And you research it, and suddenly you know. And
Mhm.
I'd like to pose the question to anyone out there: when has a horror movie gotten scarier after the research scenes?
Right.
Like, once you know what you're fighting, you know what you have to do to fight it.
Right. Right.
So these unknown moments are what really makes for great horror, but then you have that wonderful tie up with a bow at the end and show the audience, hey, what you're scared of, you can fight against. There's an answer.
Mhm.
Don't worry about it. But
Right.
when you've got these like real life moments, there's never an answer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Because life, as we all know, is so great at giving you the big answers when you need them.
Mhm.
She does
Absolutely.
fantastically.
Mm. Okay.
So, are psychological thrillers considered horror?
If they go for it,
Yeah.
like I feel like not all psychological thrillers are horror, but some can be.
Right,
Right.
they're not synonymous, but there's a lot of overlap.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure, for sure. I think we touched on this a little bit in previous questions, like how it gets in our heads, and we don't feel safe in there.
Yeah,
I'd say
exactly. It could definitely be a subgenre of horror, but it could also be its own genre altogether.
yeah.
Like, especially if you want to say, like, you could put it, even say it could be one or the other. Let's take stalker movies. Those things can really mess you up because that's something that could happen in real life to someone. But it's a horrible thing and it's something that's scary, but is it more psychological thriller than it is horror or what?
Mhm.
So I think there's definite overlap. I think that they could definitely be one and the same, and I think they could be two separate things.
Right. Yeah. I'd say so. Yeah. Does there need to be gore and or the occult to be considered horror? No.
No.
Oh yeah, definitely not.
Yeah. I think that's what we all think. Some
Yeah,
horror.
like go ahead.
Yeah.
That's just like a no.
Right, yeah. I mean, like it goes
Answer,
along
no.
with the previous question almost in that, like,
Yeah.
I don't know, some of the scariest horror to me is like not the supernatural kind, but I mean like not even like gore on screen or anything, but like the kind of like faceless cruelty kind of thing
Mm.
where like almost like human centipede kind of thing where like okay, it's
Oh.
not super realistic, and I feel like even if there weren't super graphic scenes of what he does to them,
Right.
just the idea that someone could like has the capacity to do that, that's like it's not supernatural, it's not occult, it's like very matter of fact, like this can happen.
Mhm.
I think that can be just as scary as things that you can't explain.
Right. Right. I'm sorry. Leigh, you go.
No, go.
Sure. I could even go to say that like I feel as though like the less there are like factors that try to shock you, but if it's still like absolutely terrifying, it goes to show like how well done the storytelling is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Definitely, yeah.
A
Yeah.
good quality of horror is how good the story is. Like you could, if you could put all the gore and all the occult stuff and all of that traditional scary stuff into it, but if it doesn't have a good storyline, none of it's going to be scary. And you want to know something? Scary movie prove that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's prove that.
Right. Right.
Still good movies, but not really scary. And yet
Mhm.
I would still consider them horror movies because they have the traditional horror stuff.
Right.
So, actually, on that point too, I wish I could remember the name of this movie, and I will probably, as soon as this podcast is over, I'll remember it, and I'll be like, "Everyone, come back immediately!" But there's this movie on Netflix, and it had no gore. Well, a little tiny bit at the end. I'm not gonna like spoiler, but it's like a little tiny bit. I
Right.
wouldn't really call it gore, but maybe like a little violent or not even violence, just like a little tiny bloodshed. There we go. It's the tiniest amount, right?
Right.
But
Oh yeah.
essentially the entire story took place because this is not a spoiler. This happens in the first 10 minutes. It's just telling you about the movie. You can watch it in the trailer. I promise you, not spoiling anything. This woman and her husband go to a secluded house for a honeymoon, pre-late honeymoon thing, right?
Uh-huh.
And they're getting a little kinky, so he decides to handcuff her to the bed to, get kinky, and then goes ahead and has a heart attack and dies.
Oh.
And
Jeez, all right.
intelligent man, instead of going to a shop and buying the appropriate safety handcuffs, buys police grade handcuffs.
Mm.
So she can't even break out of this situation. She's told all of her friends, I'm not even bringing my cell phone with me, guys, because I'm having this week, not weekend, week with my husband in this secluded area. There's no contact with anyone. No one's coming to look for her. And she's got her dead husband lying next to her while she's strapped to a bed.
Uh-huh.
And it had some of the scariest scenes I've ever seen. Like there are sometimes, I think I saw that movie 2 years ago, and there are sometimes I'll wake up in the night and go like, I'm not trapped. Oh my god, that thing in the dark isn't here, is it? No gore, no occult, just not. I wouldn't even really call it a psychological thriller. I would just call it horror. It was scary.
Huh, okay. Might check
Yeah,
it
it's on Netflix. I cannot remember the title of it, but if you want to Google like
Geralt's,
woman, huh?
Geralt's Game?
That's the one. That's the one. Oh, that was the
Shout out to
scary.
Hannah for spamming that in chat.
Shout out to
Yeah, Hannah's got our back.
Yeah.
Oh, it was really scary. And no spoilers, but you got to get to the end where it's just like you find out something and you're just like, oh my god, like it gets in your head. This is definitely one of those movies that's going to get into your head.
Would you say this is like the type of movie where like if you watch it a second time, you'll enjoy it even more?
That's actually a really good question because unfortunately, if you watch it the second time, you know what's going to happen and you know what the scary is and you know how they get into your head. So
Okay.
you might be able to watch it and appreciate it more because you might pick up more details. You might be able to pick up a few things didn't notice because you were too busy being scared the first time. But I don't think it would have the same impact.
Okay. Okay, I see. Cool.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mm. All right. Then next question.
What would you rate as a quality horror and why? Gerald's Game. I rate that as a quality horror. Sinister, Conjuring 1, not Insidious, guys. Well, actually, Insidious is pretty good. The ones that get into your head and just kind of like make you. I had a friend who watched Insidious, and the next day she called me and she's like, "I'm going to church now," and I'm like, "Why?"
Yeah.
Because if that's the kind of thing that scares me, I need protection, and this is where I'm going. I'm like,
That's so
okay.
funny. That's so
I'm
funny.
like, you've been 20 years atheist, but cool.
Right.
That's so funny. That's so funny. Oh,
I think
what
for
about
me,
you?
quality horror, Sinister was definitely one of them because it was one of those things where it's like, you know, the horror, the scary, it stays with you after. I feel like that's a really big part of it. That's one of the things. One of the movies that I'd watched in that global horror film class was I think it was Under the Shadow. It was like a movie like made in Israel, and like I think there was maybe like two tops like jump scares throughout the movie, but I'd call it quality horror because like the entire time I don't think it was the scariest movie that I'd ever seen, but it was absolutely gripping. Like I didn't think too much of it. I watched it, you know, as an assignment. You know,
Right.
I didn't really care too much for it, but within the first like, you know, 15, 20 minutes, like I was at the edge of my seat trying to like, you know, wonder what's going to happen next. Like I didn't realize that the movie would be over until it was over because the time flew. Because that's how much I like the movie. And like, you know, my professor, like she had it, you know, highly rated, highly recommended. I mean, I figure you wouldn't be teaching a class with this movie as part of the curriculum if it wasn't.
Mhm.
So I didn't think too much about it, but I will definitely highly recommend that one. And the other movie I'd say in terms of quality horror, for a multitude of reasons, is Midsummer, which
Okay.
is relatively recent.
I was
But
about to
it's
say I saw it being released. I didn't watch it because honestly, the trailer didn't quite appeal to me, and yet still the trailer left something in my brain where I was like intrigued, but not enough to pay like $10 for it. So how
Mm.
was that?
it's a
Like,
trip.
answer this in great detail. Sell me on this movie.
Midsummer, it's got the perfect blend of creeping horror, body horror, the whole like faceless cruelty that I talked about earlier. Something like that. I don't think there's anything supernatural that happens. Everything is like, you know, physically explained. But just the idea that like, well, like there's that feeling of helplessness. I don't know. For me, like it was directed by a dude who also did Hereditary, I think it was.
Okay.
And
Oh, I hated
I've
it.
heard Hereditary is good. I haven't. But
Hereditary up until the end, I
Yeah.
absolutely loved it.
okay.
It was I don't
But
know.
but like the
I-
themes of the movie, the themes of Hereditary, like it was. It's almost like one of those movies where I was so uncomfortable by the end of it, where it was an experience. I don't want to say I
Mm.
enjoyed it. I don't want to say I didn't enjoy it. It was worth the watch. It was worth the time that I put into it.
Mhm.
But I'm not sure I'd recommend it for people that just casually watch things.
Mm.
I
So
didn't
if
really like it at all. I was so bored through the whole movie.
okay, I mean, yeah, that's fair. Like that's part of it. Yeah.
Right. I see. For me, I can't say I've explored the horror genre enough to like give you um like a sound answer. Like Outlast is pretty terrifying, right? But when you've come to the realization that they're trying to freak you out, right? It makes things a lot better, right? Don't get me wrong, it's still like terrifying, right? But it's like, oh, it's raining blood, right? It's when you get past that, it's like, okay, oh, okay. They're just trying to scare you, right? Um, so there's that. There is one piece of horror medium um that did a really good job at catching me off guard, right? I don't know if you guys remember this. It's like a comic, and you scroll through it, and it's about
Okay. Yep.
yeah, you know what I'm talking about?
There's one of two things that you're probably talking about, and I probably know it.
Right. So it's about a woman, right, who lost her son, right? Like
Yeah.
baby son that passed away, and she's like a ghost that walks around the streets, right? Have you seen that one?
Mhm.
Mm-mm.
I know what you're talking about.
Right.
Unfortunately.
So when you scroll down through that, you feel a little safe because it's a comic, right? You're just scrolling down, it's just a comic. And then there are parts where it's animated and it's really fast and it gets all up in your face. And with the combination of that and like the sudden sounds, right? Anything that can catch you off guard when you're feeling a little safe, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think those are aspects of what makes a really good horror, right? Um,
Yeah, no, I agree with that definitely.
yeah,
Would
yeah.
you consider that like a jump scare though?
That's also true. That's also true. But it's
Partially.
when you
Yeah.
watch a jump scare in a movie, I feel like that's different than like from a sliding comic, right? Because you're in your home and you're safe, and it's just a comic, right? There's like this notion where it's like, oh, I'm just reading, right? But when it gets up in your face and it comes out of nowhere, and it is a jump scare, I agree, right? They build up to it, right? It doesn't just come out of nowhere. They build up to it. It makes you curious, and when you're at your most curious and most safe, then it catches you off guard. Whereas like in
Right.
a horror movie, it's like everyone's constantly moving, and you know what's like when it's about to come, right?
Right.
And if it does come out of nowhere, it's like just cheap, right?
Mhm.
So
So
any
that's actually a good point where you're talking about how they kind of build up to it. Some
Mhm.
of the one of the things I would definitely say goes into a quality movie if is you look at The Shining,
Mhm.
and the scene in the hallway where we have the kid whose name I forgot, even though I literally just watched Doctor Sleep, where the kid's on his tricycle, and we're talking about a movie where it's a movie, so it doesn't have the same quality as say the comic strip or a book or maybe even a video game where you feel more like a part of you is in it.
Yeah.
But the way that they did that scene with the camera motions, you actually end up feeling while you're watching this kid going down the hallway on his tricycle, the angle of it and the motions of it makes you feel like maybe you're a kid behind him on tricycle, or maybe you're like the parent chasing after him, and all of a sudden you turn a corner and boom, there's the girls. But you're building up so much of that suspense and so much of that motion and so much of that, like, you expect something to come, but you also are like, I'm in a hallway, I'm fine, I'm just playing on on a tricycle. And that
Right.
kind of anticipation, that kind of build up is really good. That's what you could really find as a quality horror versus the jump scare where they're just like boo.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Definitely agree on that one. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I wouldn't necessarily say like that comic thing is like the absolute best medium of horror, but it's definitely one that's like not mentioned, right? One that I'd say is quite underrated, right?
I think comics can be used to definitely scare people, and I think that Junji Ito has proven that.
Oh,
His-
yeah. I've read one or two stuff from things from
His
him.
use of paneling to get to insert like a page turn scare is fantastic, because he does that exact same thing. He builds you up panel by panel, and then on the very last panel he gives you this tiny little peek saying the character is about to see something or something's about to happen, and so your anticipation's built up inside of you. You're like, oh my god, what's about to happen? And then you turn the page and you're like, that is disgusting.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've read some of his stuff. I hope he's okay. Like, it takes a type of person to draw all that out.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Honestly, I've seen a few interviews with him. He's the most normal sounding guy I've ever seen.
Yeah, I know. He's like, I've seen one interview of him, but he seems quite nice, right? I'm not saying he would be like an asshole or anything, but like he doesn't strike me as like that. Yeah, I write horror stuff, right?
Right?
He's
Like,
just-
and I feel like a lot of people kind of think that about horror people, because like I've also seen like interviews with Stephen King, and people are always like, so do you like turn off the lights and write by candlelight and stuff like that? And he's like, no, I sit by my pool with my like
right.
Like, what
Right.
else? It's like apparently horror writers are super normal.
It's like, what do you do for fun? I walk my dog. I go to the lake sometimes. I don't know. What do you want me to say?
Like, well,
Yeah.
this one time I went to the bar and played pool with my friends. It's like, okay.
Right.
Wait, so you don't hold seances in midnight? You're destroying the fantasy.
You're normal.
What are your deepest yet weirdest fears and why?
Deepest and weirdest fears. Hmm. That's a great question. What do you guys think?
I don't like it when I have the feeling of people staring at me when they're not actually staring at me. Like if I'm in a room alone and I feel like I have eyes on me.
Oh,
Right.
like being watched. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know why. So I can't answer why that's a fear. But because I'm alone. I know I'm alone. But at the same like there are times where I like have to put tape over my computer camera because I'm like, I feel it. I feel this
Mhm.
presence watching me and it freaks me out.
Right.
That's one of those things where it's like you regain power over it by just yelling at, I know you're there, because if no one's there, no one hears it. But if someone is, they're like, oh shit. But for me, I think I don't think it's weird per se. Zombies and cannibalism. Body
Ooh.
horror as a whole, holy shit.
Right.
I don't know. I've seen some really messed up stuff on the internet. I've seen like, I guess, people dying, and I watch it, and it's got to the point where like I'm almost a little desensitized to it, as messed up as it is to say. But when it's like, the zombies eating you is just a culmination of all of the fears that I've stated throughout this podcast of like, faceless horror. You can't reason with it. You can't tell it. You can't, hey, I'll give you anything. Just stop fucking eating me, kind of thing.
Right.
You can't do that. Body horror, not being able to do anything. It's like you versus like a horde of zombies. Literally, what are you gonna do?
Right.
That to me is probably it. I mean, like, I guess it's weird in that it's not like a very realistic thing to happen. Like, it's not going to be like snap my fingers, boom, zombie apocalypse. I'm not being thrown into an island with a bunch of cannibals. Like, something like that. But
I'm not
it's
trying to freak you out, but you don't know that.
like, you're
And
right.
you don't know where zombies come from. You can't guarantee that.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Well, no, that's my deepest fear is being eaten alive or being completely, I don't know, mutilated while still being alive, conscious.
Oh.
I would also say that a little bit of that is me too, because I feel like, especially if I'm not going to survive it,
Yeah.
I don't want to be mutilated, and then especially if I survive and then I'm just like stuck with that forever.
Yeah. If there's like a zombie apocalypse and like I can't get up to like, if it's one of those like the scientific ones where it's not the undead, unnatural, magical, I'm going to sprint at you zombies, like, and I can't make it to like Canada or somewhere where it's like
super cold and they won't just freeze. Like
Right.
I don't know, often myself is pretty like on the table kind of thing.
Like you wouldn't
All
you
I'm
would,
saying.
right, you would not consider it.
Yeah.
Well, I can't say I have like a weird or like I can't say I have like a weird fear, right? But one thing that does like freak me out, right, is if like to branch off like your cannibalism thing, right? Um, like if someone someone you've known well, right, is now the opposer, right? Like the opposition, right? Like maybe your friend's like a serial killer or a cannibal, right? And you had no idea until you become their victim. That's pretty freaky, right? Um,
Mm.
there's a story of this Japanese guy, right? I think this happened in the 80s or something, 80s or 90s. But he would like have his colleagues from or like his friends from like university, right? Come over and have like dinner with him until like he like kills them and eats them, right? Because he's a cannibal. But the thing was, he actually hated himself. Like he hated being a cannibal, right? But it's like these are his friends that he's eating, right?
Right.
And like you can watch videos online where he says he's gotten better. Like he doesn't eat people anymore. And he's trying to
I
like.
would hope so. Like,
But he said on numerous occasions where it's like, I want to die a very painful death, right?
this was like a real person?
And this is a real person, right?
God.
So he's like, I absolutely want to die horrendously because he hates himself. Like he doesn't want to be like the way he was, but he was.
Right. Yeah.
It's
Dealing
not
with that kind of guilt and like what against that compulsion inside of you, that
Right.
internal struggle kind of thing.
right. So it's like,
There is a mental disease, and it's like a legit mental disease where the brain decayed in a way where you have that compulsion to eat people.
it's likely what he had. Yeah.
So
That's frightening.
So anyone you know, anyone that's like your friend, all of a sudden becomes like your worst nightmare. I feel like
Guys.
it ties back to the idea of like letting down your guard, right?
Right. Yeah.
That's when you're most vulnerable. And when you watch horror movies that are straight up scary, you're on guard. So there's that. Horror movies are very like they can be very straightforward and honest with you. It's the people in your life who might not be that scares me, right? So
Yeah, that's a good point.
yeah, so that's what I would have to say. Not so weird. I think that's quite rational, right? But
Right.
that's just my take on that.
yeah, I definitely think being afraid of cannibals is a rational fear.
Yeah. Yeah. Why does it seem that American horror relies too much on jump scares? I feel like maybe the ones you see rely too much on jump scares. I feel like some American horror movies can be well done, right? Like they don't rely so much on that. What do you guys think?
I think that for the most part, you have to understand that America is a very young country. And so a lot of horror films, foreign horror films, are based off of deeply rooted superstition or tales. Even if people don't so much believe them anymore, they're very integrated into the culture. So people can play off of those base fears, where American horror movies, we don't really have that culture. We don't really have a fear culture. We never really had the superstitions that other people did, because the natives that were here, we kind of tried to kill out and didn't like at all appreciate their culture. So we don't even have that. We just kind of came in and was like, start anew, blank slate. And we haven't really built up a superstition, which is where fear comes from, because the whole point of fear was to like protect you. Like, don't go out in the woods at night because there's a monster out there. Was really, don't go out in the woods at night. You'll scratch your legs, get gangrene, and die.
Right. Yeah.
Or the wolves will get you, or something like that. There was fear out there, but there wasn't a base for superstitious fear, especially since we were settled by Puritans, and Puritans didn't believe in that stuff. Puritans looked at someone and said, don't go out in the woods at night. You'll scratch yourself, get gangrene, and die.
Right.
The only thing
Yeah.
there is to fear is the devil.
Yeah, I feel like that's one of the two big parts of it. I think the other part is
since we live in America, we're exposed to a lot more American horror movies. And I mean, I guess I don't have a source on this. Someone fact check me. But I'd be willing to say that Hollywood is probably one of the biggest movie industry in the world. So I feel like we get exposed to a lot more, proportionally a lot more crap with cheap, jump scares than we would seeing movies, from other cultures. So I feel like if we do hear about, when you see another movie from a different culture, it's because it was good enough that it, they like that culture sort of vetted it for us and put it out there. So it's like, hey, this is one of our good ones. Go check it out. So I feel like both are true, and that like we don't get, like America as a whole doesn't have that deep ingrained, cultural fear, and that we're exposed to a lot more that isn't good.
Right. Like America, relatively speaking, is a new country, a newer country than most like countries, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
we're actually the second youngest, and we were the youngest country up until about 7 years ago.
what country came out 7 years ago?
I want to say it was Israel, not or, God, I can't remember.
I'm sure we could find out.
Yeah, it's really small country.
South
and
Sudan.
so stupid. A new country came out and was like, it like finally was able to, after year. I remember that it was fighting for its liberation from years and years and years, and it finally broke away. It finally got its freedom, and it was like not on the news. Like,
That's wild.
not on the news. I was like, you would think that would make news.
Mhm.
But I'm trying to say, I think it's Mecca. It has a Mecca. I don't remember. I'd have to look it up. I'm sorry, guys.
Mhm.
I just remember my history teacher telling us, guess what? America's not the youngest country in the world anymore.
Yeah, we are quite new. So
Yeah.
we lack that, foundation of superstition, I'd say. Plus, we're like a amalgamation of like 1345 countries. I don't know, right? So,
Yeah. We are
yeah.
pretty big.
Why do you like horror?
We skipped the what makes a horror movie soundtrack good.
Oh, yeah, you're right. You're so right.
That's a pretty good one. What do you guys think?
I feel like what can make a horror movie soundtrack very good is if it, in some ways, provides comfort and fear at the same time. And also, it's like some soundtracks can get gradually louder, right?
I hate those.
Pitched, right?
Yeah.
And so that can keep you more on guard. Like there's like I saw this video on YouTube a long time ago where it's like there's like a science behind like certain soundtracks, right? It's supposed to like enable your fight and flight a lot easier than like a conventional action movie soundtrack, right?
Okay, I could see that. Yeah.
Yeah. So any that ties back to like the whole psychological thing where it's like they can get in your head without you knowing it, right?
Mhm.
And all of a sudden you feel like a little tense, right? Or that you're standing up and you're paying attention, or your hair's standing up a little more than before. And in subtle ways too, right? It kind of creeps on you. I think that's what makes the soundtrack very good. What do you guys think?
I think as long as it's followed, it has to bring the right ambiance to the movie. It has to be able to support the movie. It's really the supporting element in the movie. So as long as they're doing it well, then I'm okay with it.
Right. Yeah, like you're not gonna find like a purely EDM soundtrack in like The Witch or something.
Right. Like you hear Alan Walker or something out of nowhere. That'd be hilarious.
Right. Yeah, I agree with Vinny for the most part on that. I like one of the exercises that we did in like just for horror classes, like watch a horror movie, like a scene, like a horror movie scene with the sound off, and I mean after that you really realize like how much they sort of like they rely on that in the background noise, like that building suspense, that kind of like musical themes. Like I guess my music theory is garbage, and I haven't like really learned anything about it since like middle school. But like stuff like play it in a minor key, that kind of thing, where it has like a haunting melody.
Uh-huh.
I feel like all of that plays a big part of it, and I feel like also it's one of those things where you don't notice it being good, but you know when it's bad.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good point. I think a good soundtrack is when you don't notice it's being
Right.
it is good, but a bad soundtrack you're going to notice immediately.
Yeah. I forgot where I read or heard this from, but it kind of applies to anything. If no one notices you messed up, you did perfect, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. Also, the types of horror soundtracks like we've talked about were like the creeping kind, the one that kind of gets to you. But then there are others that are like blaring, right? But are also really well done. Like, I play Outlast 2, right? And
Mhm.
there's a soundtrack that has like high pitched noise and a blaring trumpet, right? That occasionally plays. And it's very terrifying, right? Because it's like I feel like it's so out of like it adds to that um that that tension of like everything is not within my control, and that's when we feel the most scared, right?
Right.
Mhm.
So I think Outlast 2 has. I used to think Outlast 1 did better, but the second one definitely had better soundtrack after playing it a little more.
Yeah, I
Um,
feel like those sound cues, it goes along with like the whole background noise thing, where you don't realize that you're associating that kind of fear with that soundtrack. So when it's happening in the background, you're like,
Right.
I mean, you're not keyed into it, but it's
Right,
there and
right.
it's happening, and it's building suspense for you.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
There's also a type of percussion in the background that like it emulates a type of heartbeat, right?
Oh yeah.
Oh
Yeah, it's
wow,
crazy. Yeah.
really well done. Yeah. So along with that and the high pitched noise and the blaring trumpets, like it's very well created, very well placed in the game. So I applaud Red Barrows. Seriously. Fuck those
Yeah,
guys.
I like the use of that of a heartbeat or something. And that being said, I think the best piece of horror movie soundtrack will definitely be from Hitchcock's Psycho and those violins.
Okay. Yeah. Watched a few clips of that.
Yeah,
I know the violin.
they just became so synonymous with horror. Like you hear those violins and you're like, someone's gonna die.
Right.
I think the last thing I wanted to give a shout out to is sort of talked about it in the podcast discussion a little bit up, but there's a French movie I think it was called Raw that we watched a clip of in my global film horror class, and there's a scene where like I'm gonna spoil a little bit because I personally don't want anyone to watch it because I don't like it because it's about cannibalism, but
Mhm.
where like the main character is sort of coming to terms with the fact that she has a craving for human flesh,
Okay.
and I don't remember who it was. It might have been her sister or her friend or something. Accidentally cuts off her finger. I don't remember the context, but she grabs her finger and is sort of panicking, like, "Oh God, like I need to save my friend. I should probably ice this." And she calls the cops, and she's sitting down like in the kitchen, blood everywhere, and she has this finger. And the soundtrack is building the entire time, and I didn't realize it until she's staring at the finger, and there's a moment where you realize like she just starts looking at it differently, where it's not like a feeling of horror that my friend's finger got cut off. It's more that it's a feeling of I want to eat this, but I know I shouldn't. And she
Right.
gives in, and at that moment, like you know, the soundtrack sort of builds up and it's swelling, and it's the equivalent of like a dubstep drop, and
Right.
it's like
Right.
for me it had that like that feeling of like where it was so loud, but it went so well. It was almost like a sensory overload type deal where it for me triggered like the fight, flight, or freeze reaction, and I was just frozen in place watching this in horror as this is happening.
Mm.
So shout
What
outs to that.
what movie is this
Yeah.
again?
It's called Raw.
Raw.
I think is it on Netflix? I feel like I've come across it.
I'd believe it, but I'm not
Mm.
sure.
Wow. Oh yeah, I see like some images of it. Yeah, she's just staring at the finger.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. Oh wow, that's nasty.
Hmm.
So
Okay.
a quick sidebar, I looked it up because I wanted to find the news report and I still couldn't find the news report. But we are actually not the second youngest country. My history teacher lied to me. The one I was thinking of though was Kosovo, which went
Mm,
independent in 2013.
I see.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're like there's actually a lot of countries though we are much older than now. So, haha.
Gotcha. Okay.
But I just wanted to put that out there. Nobody write down on the history report that we are a young country.
Okay. Why do you like horror? Because it's scary.
Because
Yeah.
there's actually a book written about this called The Philosophy of Horror, and it's called The Paradox of Horror that explains why people like horror. And it's because everything is so taboo or bad or violent or gory or is occult or something like that that it insinuates curiosity. So because we're not supposed to want to see it, because it's something that we're supposed to like cringe from and not, be a part of, it incites our curiosity and therefore we want to be a part of it.
Ooh, yeah, interesting.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
And the added element of it being like in a movie or a book or a video game means there's always going to be a safety barrier between us. So bringing the cannibal thing up, not trying to scare anyone here, maybe a little, but bringing the cannibal thing up, when you're watching a cannibal movie, you can be scared of it because it is pretty scary, but you are watching a movie and at the end of the day, you can turn the TV off and be like, wow, that was scary. And you can therefore satisfy your curiosity versus going up to a cannibal and being like, I kind of want to watch you eat a finger. Not mine, but,
Okay.
it would be kind of cool. And they'd be like, well, you're here and hand me your hand. So it takes away a certain element of danger, but allows you to continue to be curious about things that you are afraid of.
Gotcha. Yeah, okay.
That totally, I totally buy that. I
Yeah.
feel like the way you describe it, right, is it kind of, applies to me certainly, right? So
I mean, going along with that, like one of the things I was taught was that, like, historically anyway, that horror movies were, or horror in general, was built upon, like the community, the culture as a whole, like their uneasiness, their collective fears. So in a sense, well, for me anyway, you watch it to. I feel like it's almost like akin to what Vinny does with the LS streaming for everyone, and you're sharing that experience, that horror, with other people. It's almost like a bonding thing.
right, yeah.
So for me, like watching horror movies with people, I think is really awesome because it's like a moment of vulnerability that you get to share with someone, and that I feel like is one of the really good ways to get to know someone, get closer.
Yeah, for sure. It's one of those things where it's like anytime you experience some kind of like obstacle or opposition with someone else, right? You have that in common, right? So,
Right.
a great way to get to know someone, like you just said. So, all right. What's your favorite genre of horror? Like monsters, psych thrillers, psychological thrillers, etc. What do you guys say? I'm sure, like I said, I need to explore more in the genre of horror, right? Uh, what do you guys say? What's your favorite genre of horror?
I kind of like occult horror in a way. I like the ghosts, demons, the whole Conjuring
this-
and Insidious kind of concept.
Like supernatural. Actually, I like that as well. Yeah.
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 I'm not. I'm a little hesitant to say supernatural in general because honestly, vampire movies, werewolf
Yeah.
movies,
Yeah.
A
Okay.
little overdone.
Sure. Yeah.
It's like even the good old day ones that were better, I'm just like, oh, it's entertaining. I never really got fear out of something that can die from garlic.
Oh.
I don't know. It's like, okay, so you're trying to bite me, and all I have to do to like survive is eat an everything bagel.
Right.
Just don't know vitamin side. Easy. What are you talking about?
Olive
I mean,
garlic
Yeah.
bread.
it's like the best way to keep yourself safe from a vampire. Take a garlic pill every day. Good for your
Right.
heart and keeps you alive. So I don't know. I just kind of like never got into so that's why I'm a little hesitant to say supernatural in a sense. but the other side of it, the demons, the ghosts, especially like ghosts. Come on, ghosts are awesome.
That's a classic. Like a classic that doesn't get so stale.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I like that.
Mhm.
Especially the ones that get into your brain a little bit, and I mean like literally the ghosts get into your brain.
Like possession type stuff.
Possession, dragging
Okay,
you
yeah.
dragging you down to their ghostly dimensions.
Right.
Another reason I like especially demons is because you can fight the demon, and at the end of the movie there's always the exorcism one, but then you're like, yeah, but it's a demon, you know it's coming back.
Right.
If
Yeah. Like,
not,
or
there's
did
like
it?
100,000 more where that came from.
Right,
Yeah.
right. You know, when you bring up like possession and stuff like that, that's one of the supernatural things I enjoy so much as well. Like if you recall the first like 20 minutes of the first Conjuring movie, I feel like there's like a couple ways to like really freak out anyone, right? From the get-go. And they did it so well, right? Because not only did they like subvert your expectation, because it's like there's a family and there's the Annabelle doll, right? And yeah, this doll's like it's telling us that the spirit possessed it and blah blah blah, right? And you know, Ed and Lorraine Warren, they're like, no, understand this, right? When you allowed it to take place in your house, you just said it can do whatever it wants, right? And it doesn't possess dolls. It just seemed that way. It wants to possess you, right?
That was the best moment.
Yeah, and then this like
Wild.
overbearing sense of dread just like comes in this room, right? And it's like, oh my god, we were so close to getting so like done in by this spirit.
Mm-hmm.
So well done. It was so well done. Like when he said you, when he finished that sentence, you felt that, right? It's like, oh wow, that's kind of creepy. Very scary. I love that. So supernatural, I'd say for now. I'll have to explore more and let you know in like a year or so.
Yeah, like honestly, that kind of goes on to my fear of someone watching you in the room. I think that might actually come where from, because here you're being told, no, the doll's not possessed. There's just an invisible being moving it around to mess with your head, and you're like,
Right.
there's something. It's just like that just totally freaks me out every time I think about it.
Uh-huh.
It's like it's there. They're always there, and then they're going to drag you down to wherever they want you to do.
Right.
So
Mm.
I was
Well-
gonna say psychological horrors for me personally, but thinking about it, I guess like supernatural is a big part of it. I feel like horror movies, well, actual horror movies, not like cheap jump scares or stuff like torture porn Saw kind of movies.
yeah,
Um,
so
Yeah, they like. I mean, I feel like regardless of what the theme is, they're going to get in your head, and I like the movies that get in your head.
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, so that supernatural for me too, I guess.
Okay. Fair. What are your favorite ways that horror is portrayed in other cultures? Oh, that's a great question.
What about have any horror movies affected you after watching them, and how?
How do I keep skipping these? I'm sorry, you guys. I don't know why. I'm dyslexic today. Used to when I was younger, right?
Right.
Nowadays, like, call me psychopath or whatnot. I could play Outlast for like an hour, 2 hours. I could go sleep just fine later that night. I have a very good sense of like dissociating from like horror things in real
Okay.
life. So I really need something to shake me to my core to really keep me up at night. Because really, the things that keep me up at night is literally, it's a literal thing. It's just sleep paralysis, right? So
Huh.
that's the scariest thing that I always encounter, right? And it happens frequently. So I feel like unless it's that, I don't know. Oh, raining blood, right? Outlast is great. Like it's just like it definitely is trying to be over the top sometimes. It's like a yeah. What were you guys?
I can answer that Gerard's game did affect me, but I can't explain how without giving away a spoiler.
That's fair. That's okay. That's fair.
Yeah. I mean, I
Well,
guess for me, like it was just The Ring, but that was like a decade ago or so, more than definitely. And I don't know. I guess from here, to some level, I have that same sense of like dissociation, where like, okay, it's just a movie, but
right.
like when you start thinking about it enough that you're almost getting re-immersed into it, and that's when it comes back up, and that's I don't know.
Yeah, but that's the thing that makes a horror movie so good. Like, yeah, it's just a movie, but if it affected you, then it's doing its job.
Yeah, that's
Right.
true. That's fair.
It's wiggled its way into your brain, so now your imagination is taking over.
Right.
Mhm.
What makes something creepy for you?
What is your
Wait,
favorite
I
horror
have a different
movie?
question. Sorry, guys. No one read, okay, no one let me read questions. It's gotta be one of you two. I can't keep. Sorry, I'm sorry.
You all is forgiven, and I can answer that easily. The Grudge.
The Grudge. Okay. Ramon.
As a general thing, I guess the whole idea of a curse, whether it's you are cursed or you are in an area that's cursed, and like whether you knew it or not, you messed up, and now something is after you.
Right. Okay. Cool. Cool. I haven't explored so much about other like cultures' horrors, right? But I know a little bit about their superstitions, right? Like in some country, there's like the opposite of Santa Claus, right? Where it's like
Oh,
children.
yeah,
You know what I'm talking about? Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So anything that has a sense of history, right? And just it doesn't feel like it's been done. Obviously, I'll feel like that because like I'm so accustomed to like American culture and like the horrors they present, right?
I got it.
But anything that's just slightly off-putting for me, like from other cultures, superstition horror-wise, so can't say that I've seen so much of it.
Sorry, I'm looking it up now because that's gonna bother the heck out of me. I know the answer to
It's
this.
like it's like Nick something. I'm not sure.
There it is. Krampus. That's the dude.
The Krampus.
I think I've heard
Krampus.
of that in passing, but I didn't know what it was until you guys said it.
They
Right,
made a really good movie about Krampus. I'm not gonna lie, it was really good.
Jeez, oh my god, I'm
Is
looking
it
at it.
called
Oh my
Krampus?
It is
god,
called
Neat. Okay.
it looks freaky.
Yeah, he basically looks like the devil. He's half goat, has horns, is part human. What he does is he rides along with Santa, and instead of in certain areas of the world, and instead of little kids getting coal on Christmas, what he does is he'll steal them and take them back to his castle, and he whips them with a there's lots of different things that they say. He'll whip you with a birch tree branch. He'll eat your skin. He turns you into pudding, or he'll just like he just tortures you for the night if you've been bad. So
Mm,
yeah,
Neat.
the movie was fantastic. Instead of torturing kids, Krampus came and tortured an entire town. It was amazing.
bruh. Um,
All right. Let's see. What makes something creepy for you?
I was waiting for Vinny. I was like,
I'm sorry.
Trying to bait it out.
okay, creepy. What makes something like in general creepy, do you think? Or maybe just like horror, let's stick to the horror movie thing. Dolls.
dolls.
Dolls are creepy. What makes them creepy? They have these big eyes that stare into your soul.
Okay.
And they know all your secrets and they can use them against you.
What were you, Ramon?
I'd say uncanny valley stuff for me.
Yeah.
I'm gonna reference The Ring again. Not so much the whole like idea of it, but specific parts, or I think it was near the end of the first one where she's like they're trapped in the well, or she's trapped in the well, and she's coming out, and she looks down and she sees the evil spirit coming after her, and there's that sort of almost close-up scene where she's climbing up, but she's climbing up in a way that isn't. She's like defying the laws of physics, where her like bodies shouldn't move like that kind of thing.
Right.
That's creepy to me.
You know what? I
Mhm.
changed dolls kind of on that same concept, but with old people.
Yeah, because they're still like, harmless, or they should be.
Yeah,
Right.
something about old people in horror movies are terrifying. Like in every sense of the way, like the old man that gives you the warning before you go into the haunted house, or the demon lady who sprouts like 6-foot legs and crawls up a wall like a spider.
Right.
It's just and they're terrifying. Old people are scary.
Yes,
I
yes.
feel-
Also, it too, definitely. I think actually for me it was
Yeah.
the trailer where she's having tea with the old woman.
Yeah.
Oh my god! And then she fucking like becomes naked out of nowhere, and like
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
that was
no,
freaky as
no.
hell.
That was the only part of the entire movie where I was like, oh my god, this is getting creepy finally.
Right, yeah.
I was so surprised they showed that in the trailers. I was watching, I was like, oh, this is gonna be cool. But I popped off. I was like, yo, what the heck? Like,
Right.
oh my god, when I saw that.
I feel like for me, so much of what makes something so creepy is if it subverts your expectation and does things in ways that aren't common, right? So like you watch a trailer about a horror movie, you don't see for like maybe half a second an old lady just nakedly walking into another room out of nowhere, right?
Yeah,
And the way she walks too, and how
Mm.
there's just like this subtle change in like the soundtrack, right? I feel like for me, if you place me in some type of a medium of horror that I would think will go one way, but does something completely different, that's what's gonna scare me. Because
Mhm.
when you see one thing, you've seen many of it, right?
Right.
When you finally encounter something that's like very unique and different, it's like, whoa, wow, that's right. Like you kind of don't know what to expect, and that's what can be scary. So I haven't seen it too. I heard it was good. I haven't seen it one either, so I'll check both of them out.
It's solid, worth the watch.
Yeah.
That's one thing I do hate about media when they overdo the trailer and then you're watching the movie and you're like, well, I saw that in the trailer. I'm not scared anymore. Because
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
what you've basically done is you've taken away the subverted expectation. You're like, you're now expecting it.
There's two movies. Like I feel like if you do a horror movie without any soundtrack, right? And if it's really done well, that's when I'll really, really enjoy it. Right? Like
Okay.
because horror like you have to understand like soundtracks are used to enhance the experience of horror, right? So if you take that away and you can still make a compelling like movie or game without any kind of like music, right? Because
Mhm.
music is like, okay, I know what to expect, right? Like there's blaring trumpets and whatnot, right? And that's terrifying, right? But if you can somehow take that away, right? A handicap for the developers or like for the game, like movie producers, right? And it still rocks you to your core. Wow, I've yet to see it. There are two movies that uses lack of sound as as a way to tell their movie. One of them is um it's the one with John Krasinski. I forgot the name of it. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Came out like 2 years ago.
The Quiet Place.
Yeah, The Quiet Place, right? So I
Okay,
haven't
yeah.
seen that. I wish I saw that in theaters because I heard that was like an experience, right?
Oh yeah, no, I could believe that, definitely.
I'm sorry. There must be something wrong with me. I hated that movie so much.
I've never seen it.
Everyone I know says how great it is, and I'm just there's something wrong with me, and blah blah blah. And I'm like, no, that movie horrible.
Oh, you're kind of like The Quiet Place, how I am with Us. You know that horror movie Us?
I hated that movie.
So bad. Like people said, I could not for the life of me understand. There's not once was I scared. Actually, I take that back. There are like one or two scenes, but it's it just didn't do it. Like it was just action, right? I like the plot twist at the end. That's about it. But
I mean, was it really a plot twist? Because I kind of knew that was going to happen the whole time.
really, I didn't. I don't want to
Maybe
talk.
it's just because I watch more horror movies than you.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to get into spoiler territory with the movie, but it's fine. I give it a 6 out of 10. It's if it's in front of me and my friends recommend it, I'll watch it again. But I'm not
Or
gonna.
you're a generous person. I give it like a 1.
Wow, one. So if someone
I give
recommends it to watch for the
both
night,
of
you're
those
like, no,
movies.
I'll shoot you. Mm.
Have you ever been in a haunted house or haunted trail or something similar? And how did you react?
My my dad. He's told me very firmly and very strongly, do not go to a haunted place. Right? He's told me that once, and I don't need him to tell me a second time. Right? Um, I don't know. He feels very strongly that I don't experience anything what he has, right? Um,
Oh, that's true. Yeah, from the story that you told earlier, that
yeah,
makes sense.
that's one of many. I'm sure he suppressed a lot of it, and so
Yeah, I
he's
believe
like,
it.
so it's like, if you ever want to pay respects, do so at the cemetery or at the grave. Do not go to where they have passed away, right? Unless you can't help it, right? And stuff like that. He's a very superstitious person. He believes in spirits and whatnot, right? And he's a firm believer that I do not go anywhere near haunted. What do you guys think? Like what about you guys?
All the time.
Wait, okay.
Like, I have paid people to go to haunted houses and haunted trails, and I'll hunt them down. I love it. It's something I do. I can't really say how I react because it's just I've been to so many that there's so many different ways to react to them. Most of the time, I'm gonna say on a general base, it's curiosity, interest, and like I almost treat it like field study. But like really interesting field study. I'll take like if I go out there, I'm taking notes. Like, okay, this branch broke in this way, and like, oh my god, a squirrel ran across it, and was that something? I'm like out there. I'm like waiting for the spirits. I'm ready.
Right. What about you, Ramon? Any haunted place you've ever been to?
Oh hell no. Nah. It's like I don't think I believe that anything would happen, but it's like at the same time like I'm not gonna tempt fate. That ain't me. So
Ah, okay, it's official. There's something wrong with me because I love it. I love it.
I love. Okay.
No,
I've
no,
never experienced it. I say I would love to experience it. I would probably hate it. So I'll just leave it at that. I'm very curious, but I don't know.
and maybe you've been to a haunted place and didn't realize it. There's a lot of places around Virginia that are haunted, apparently.
I've heard that, yeah.
Yeah. So
I've been to Bunnyman Bridge, but I don't know if that's haunted.
how
What?
How was apparently, don't worry, it's not haunted. Someone debunked the whole mystery, which I hate them for that. But how was it? Did you like sit there and be scared or something? Or did you just like, oh, it's just a bridge?
So my friends and I, we went there around like 2 a.m., 3 a.m., right? And this is before I knew this was debunked because you just told me, right? But it was like a yellow bridge, right? It's a little smaller than you think it would be, right? And we just kind of chilled under there for like maybe half an hour, right? Nothing happened, obviously, right? But that's my experience, you know. I guess I didn't mention it before because like nothing really happened, right? I didn't feel like there was eyes watching me other than my friends. I didn't feel like something bad was gonna happen. If I did, I was just like scared at the time, right? But like looking back, literally nothing happened, right? So
I weirdly feel like if you're actively going to someplace or going with your friends, that nothing's gonna happen. I feel like your expectations are something's gonna happen, so maybe you're shut down to anything that could happen. But I don't know. I've never, aside from excitement and hopefulness, I've never really felt anything.
remember how I said if people don't have a reason to lie, I love their stories.
Mhm.
So like I would love to see like someone who's a firm believer in like not believing in this type of stuff experience it, right?
Mm.
How would they react? Because like people who believe in that kind of stuff, they go, "Oh, did you hear that? Did you see that?" Right? Like that does come. But how do people, if there are anything irrational, like if there are any irrational experiences ever happening, right? How do people who kind of like disregard that would react, right? Like, what if they're just chilling in a room and a brick flies across the room and almost like smashes their head, right? Stuff like
That'd
that.
be crazy. I love that stuff.
Yeah, I don't want them hurt, obviously, but I've seen like
Right,
one
yeah.
episodes of Ghost Adventures, right? And there was like an episode where like a brick just flies and like across the room, right? Like this really, really dark abandoned place, right? And there was like no wind, nor was the brick like light, right? So Zach Bacon's like, all right, we're just gonna go the opposite direction. We're not hanging out there.
Yeah.
So, um, yeah, that's the haunted experience. Nothing from me. Hopefully forever. But if it happens, I'll if it's out of my control, then I'll at least, you know, figure things out with my curiosity. Okay, not skipping a question this time. What is your favorite and least favorite horror trope?
I'm so proud of you.
My least favorite is if you trip. I have no sympathy for you. If I had a gun, I will shoot you as you fall. I do not care. Like, if you trip and there's nothing there, I am going to shoot you in the head. Right?
It's
I'll-
like that's Darwinism at work right there.
Yeah. Double points if you stay on the ground. Bonus, but like if you do not like get up immediately and start running, right? Then
Yes.
you know.
It's like, okay, you know what? I will sometimes I will be like, okay, you're running really fast from something and you're looking behind you to see if you're getting away from it and you trip because you're clumsy. All right, now get the freak up and go.
Right.
Like, just go, man, go.
Yeah. Where's your sense of survival? You know, like
Right. What were you guys? What's your least favorite like horror trope?
least favorite for me is the whole. All right, guys, there's something that's going to kill us, or this place is haunted. Let's split up. Like,
Oh yeah, it's funny. They kind of make fun of that in Cabin in the Woods.
yeah. And it's like, it's one thing, like, okay, if you have a group of 10 people, okay, pair off, that's fine. But like, okay, I'm gonna go by myself, or even if there's nothing wrong, if I slip and I fall and I break my leg, I could just still be dead anyway. Like, you're dumb.
Right.
I feel like I don't. I feel like if there's 10 people, there's this thing that was instilled in us when I was a kid called safety in numbers.
Right.
I feel like that's pretty common amongst people. I feel like, guys, if nothing else, if you're in a large group, the people in the middle are more likely to survive.
Yeah.
Just make sure you're in the middle. Like, ping and barricade yourself.
Right.
But sort of segueing off of that though is when there's too many people, like once you got about like let's say 6 or 7 people, and you can't see everyone's faces at the same time, and you realize there's more of you in your group for a second.
Oh,
That I've seen some horror things that like have taken advantage of that, and that is the freakiest thing, and I love it.
yeah, I love that. Like, you do a head count, and then you're like, okay, is everyone here? It's like, no, do it again. And you're like, okay, why did we just get like an extra person?
Right? Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah, that's really well done. It's like there was not 11 of us or 10 of us. Who's like the extra, right?
yeah.
Ooh, I like that. I enjoy that a lot.
Although sometimes I feel like, how do you ask who's the extra if they're your friends? Just look at the one you don't recognize. I mean, I would get the initial fear, but it's like, wait, who's the extra person? Why do we have more than one people? Like, just look. Just
Right.
look at the people around you.
Right.
You should know these people. Now, granted, if it's like, there's this really good movie I watched where it was kind of more of a hard thriller kind of action movie sort of ish. It was more gore based, but essentially a bunch of people were invited to a building for a job interview, and then they were trapped in the building because the person who invited them had a grudge against all of them and they were killing them off. In that case, I'd be like, okay, you don't know the people around you. But
Yeah, that's fair.
in like the general sense, when it's a bunch of friends going out of the abandoned cabin in the wood to party and do teenage stuff, that is another thing, another trope I hate. Why are they always teenagers and why are they always getting drunk?
Right. It's like they kind of whatever happens to them, they deserve it, right? Why do I have sympathy for them?
It's like, can it ever just be like, oh, another one I really don't like, and okay, I don't want to spoil Cabin in the Woods, so I'm not going to use their terminology.
Right.
But the survivors always like the sweet innocent chick.
Oh,
The little one who didn't want to go to begin with.
right.
I'm like, why can't it ever be the party girl? Why does she have to die?
Yeah.
I agree. What are your guys' favorite?
Oh, I think my favorite trope is gonna be it's genre specific to slasher movies, but I really like the kind of juggernaut immortal killer.
Okay.
Like
Oh
Michael
yeah,
Myers.
it's like a sense of like, not being able to contain that situation at all.
Yeah, I like that. I think it's a pretty good, like, it's a trope because it's so overplayed, but at the same time, I'm like, more please. That's okay. I'm all right with that.
Mm.
What about you, Vinny?
A favorite trope? I can't say it's a trope, but one thing I wish horror movies would do, right, is if they bring guns to shit, right?
Mm.
In the first Outlast game, there's like an army of like this private contractor, right? And so there's like a like, almost like SWAT team that like enters in this asylum, right? And it's that feeling of like even they get messed up, right? By that unknown entity, right? And badly too, right? That really like because like have you ever watched like a horror movie and you're like, what if I had a gun? Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It would kind of like de-escalate the situation of that guy who's just walking with a knife, right? But if you have like a SWAT team, right? And even they are like completely helpless, how am I supposed to feel?
Yeah.
Like you're useless. You're literally just there, right? Like I'm sure if you like threw a SWAT team in like let's say cabin in the woods, they're not gonna do so much, right? Um I don't know, right? So it's one of those things. Get give a potential like feeling of security and then completely crush it.
Right.
Yeah, I think that'll be a good way because it's like at that point, how am I supposed to feel? If you think that guy who's wearing like 5 bulletproof armor vests, right? If he got completely demolished, what am I gonna do, right? I'm not gonna make it out of this.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I've seen that sort of in a few horror movies, but not as like a good way to insinuate more horror. But they actually like in Cabin in the Woods. It wasn't in Cabin in the Woods, but they more used it as a comedy thing to
Yeah.
lighten the mood, and not actually using it to help with like creating an ambience of horror. And I would actually like to see that too.
Right. Yeah.
I guess for me, favorite trope. I'm not even sure if it's a trope, but I like the whole thing of you think it's concluded, but then just kidding,
Ooh.
there's more.
Oh yeah. That like in Jason versus Freddy when you think it's over and Jason's walking out of the water holding Freddy's hand.
Right. Yeah.
I love it.
Sometimes they use it in a very cheap way to kind of just like tease a sequel. But I like it when
Right. That's true.
I like it when it's done right. Yeah, I agree. Hey, I'll be back really quick. I need to use the restroom. I'm sorry, you guys.
Have fun, but not too much fun.
That was funny.
All right. Well, I guess we can start on the next question.
I actually had a question for you. We can play off.
For me,
Yeah. Zombieland. Action or horror?
action with horror elements, I'd say.
Yeah,
Action with horror elements. I don't know. I unfortunately haven't seen it. But I hear it's good, and it doesn't seem to me like it's one of those like super horror movies. So I'm Patrick. I live under a rock. But yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're no longer welcome in this channel. Go away.
Bye.
Really to watch for Zombieland.
There's a lot of stuff on my plan to watch, like the classics and stuff like that. Like I just saw The Shining, I think this year.
Oh, that's a good one.
But yeah.
What did you think of it?
I really liked it. Oh, like the ambience and everything. Oh god, the atmosphere was absolutely phenomenal, just from the get go.
Yeah, I liked it a lot.
Yeah.
Oh, that was a good childhood memory for me. I had great parents. Okay, so thoughts on true crime. Immediately love it, worship it, have so many true crime podcasts.
I've listened to only one, right? I think it's cool, right? I'd say I'm open to like, listening to more podcasts. Not too crazy about it, right? But yeah. What about you, Ramon? True crime?
I'm okay with it. I can appreciate it. It's not for me, that kind of thing. Where it's like I don't hate it. I don't like. I can listen to it in the background, kind of thing. But it's not my first pick of things that I'd want to experience or listen to.
Okay, that's fair.
My favorite podcasts are true crime. The only thing I like more than that is one called Nightmare Magazine. And that's where they sit there and read to you. And some of the best voice actors I've heard for like audiobooks. They read horror stories to you.
Very cool.
I love it. Love it.
Are Netflix original horror thrillers any good? I've seen only one original on Netflix, and it wasn't that good, to be honest. It had its moments, but it felt quite flat. It just
Which
tried to bring you. Huh?
What was it?
Let me see if I can try to find it. Netflix original horror. So the whole premise of the movie is like there's this female cop, right? And last shift, yeah. So it's called Last Shift, right? And you can tell like it didn't have that much money to begin with, right? It had its moments where it was quite scary, but it kind of just fell flat at the end. Nor were the effects like so grand or great, right? And then when it ended, it felt like it could have been the middle, right, of a film. So I don't know. The ending wasn't really satisfying, and you're kind of like left with this. Okay, so a shitty thing happened, and that's it. All right,
Right.
real
Yeah.
simple conclusion. Yeah. So it's one of those things. I'd still say it's fine. It's like a 6, 7, right? I'd say if you have absolutely nothing to do, check it out, right? But not my go-to.
Let's see.
Yeah.
I like the Netflix original horror series. There
Yeah.
are some really good series out there, so I wouldn't necessarily call them movies. There is one movie I really like called Earthquake Bird, and I honestly, it's got that subversive kind of creepy vibe to it, where you know something's going down, and you pretty much have this concept of what's going down. Basically, what happens is this woman gets very beginning of the movie gets pulled into the police office, and the police are like, this friend of yours is gone missing and we're pretty sure you're the one who murdered her, right? And so the whole story is told from this kind of perspective of what happened from the time she met this girl to the time she went missing, and on all these creepy elements that kind of come in. But I actually would almost say it's more of a suspense than a horror.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It definitely leaves some suspense in there, but I'm also a little biased because I watch so many horror movies. I'm really desensitized to some of it, so
Right.
some people might find it a lot creepier than I ever would have. But it was really good. I actually watched it like 5 times, so, and I thought it actually got better.
What's it called again?
Earthquake Bird.
Earthquake
Bird.
Earthquake Bird. I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
As for me, like I don't think. I mean, like I haven't seen many like Netflix original horror / thriller stuff, but I don't see why there wouldn't be a good one, just because like I know the production value for Netflix stuff is absolutely freaking insane. I mean, I think they did like was it Black Mirror Bandersnatch, right? I watched that one. That was
great.
cool.
That was really well done. It's not really horror. Like it freaks you out. There are moments where it freaks you out, but
Right. Yeah.
it's so meta. 'Cause
Right.
you're-
But just
yeah,
like the idea of there being that kind of production value, I'd be really like I'd be surprised if there wasn't at least one good one out there, kind of thing.
to anyone who's never experienced Black Mirror Bandersnatch, I highly recommend it. It's interactive, so you choose what the main character decides to go through, right? And so your experience could very well be different from mine. There's like maybe 8 to 13 different endings, right? Definitely like worth it, right?
I
And
agree with that.
there's a way where the premise is you decide the decisions of a person who's like coding for a video game, and so at the end of your playthrough, it's like if the game came out and the person kind of reviews it, right? So the person on TV that reviews it is kind of like describing how your gameplay was like, right? So
Oh,
let's
that's
say, yeah. So let's
that's
say,
crazy.
so if you finish the experience within like 20 minutes, because you could, right?
Mhm.
The reviewer on because the person's watching the TV and you're watching him kind of like review his game. It's like, yeah, The game was fine. It's just you can tell it's very rushed through, and they didn't really take the time to like go through all the other experiences, and they just went with the easiest route, right? I give the total ending maybe a 3 out of 10, right? Try again, and it's like very meta because it's like he's telling the creator make another game, but it's also telling you to play the film again.
Yeah,
I
it's
love,
pretty cool.
love it.
Yeah.
And that on that note, anyone listening, just watch Black. If the title has Black Mirror in it, just watch it. It's so good. They
I
haven't made a bad one yet.
right. But yeah, Black Mirror, everybody, Bandersnatch, and everything else. Feel free.
Yeah.
Um,
You
would
want to
you?
talk about something like they're not? You can't even say all of them are horror movies because or horror genre. They're not, like there might be some that are kind of creepy or stuff, but they are definitely types of shows to get in your head and make you contemplate reality.
I saw the Miley Cyrus one, right? And
That
that one's kind of cute, actually. Right?
It was cute. I'm not gonna lie. There is. I will stand by what I said. There's not a bad one. The original ones, like the first and half of the second season, were probably some of the better ones. Once, because it was originally aired, produced, and like distributed in Britain. Once America got its hands into it, though, oof.
Mm,
Yeah.
I
Okay.
Still really good, but you could like see where the quality of like messing with your head really got downplayed versus just plain being entertaining.
I see. I'd have to check that out.
Yeah.
Mm. Would you want to be a survivor or just die? It depends.
Yeah.
It really does depend.
I'm a very people's person, right? If there are people around me, certainly I would want to survive, right? If it's absolutely like uh, just despair everywhere, hopelessness, I'm the only one left, then yeah, I just die. I'd just rather die, right?
Yeah, if we're talking like post-apocalyptic, like even if you do survive, even if like the humanity ending threat stops somehow,
Right.
if it's already like halfway gone through and you're one of like maybe 10 people on Earth, it's like, well, that's a lot of trauma. I'm probably not want to deal with that.
Right.
I kind of agree with you guys. It really does depend on the situation, and it also
Yeah.
depends on what I went through. Like even if it was like one of those horror movies where it's just like me and a few friends being chased by something, I don't know how much of the mental damage I want to take with me through the rest of my life.
Right, definitely.
So like depends on just how much PTSD I'm gonna walk away with. Will I survive or die?
Mm,
Because I'll admit it, I'll get to an end of a horror movie and they're showing these happy survivors getting wrapped up in those tinfoil blankets from fire trucks, and they're police that finally arrive and all of this, and I'm just thinking they look so happy. Wait till they see their therapy bill.
right. Mm.
What are some horror movies you loved but weren't afraid of?
There is just one.
Saw. I can say it while you're looking it up. It was Saw.
Saw.
I don't even know how it was considered a horror movie. It's more like a gore fest, but it's Saw.
Can you
Oh,
describe the premise of
Yep.
Saw to me?
Hmm?
Can you describe the premise of Saw?
Saw? You've never seen Saw?
I
Okay.
don't know.
Okay, so each movie is basically the same premise.
Oh, Saw. I heard of it.
Yeah, Saw. SAW Saw.
Yeah.
Yeah, and these people get kidnapped and held in a bunker, and there's this creepy doll on a tricycle, and he talks to people and he says you have to do these activities if you want to survive, and it's basically body mutilation.
Mm, I see.
Yeah, that
Okay.
goes along with the whole cheap horror like jump scare kind of thing, where it's just torture porn.
Yeah, it is. It's just torture porn.
I was gonna say a similar answer. I forgot the name of the movie. So the premise is like there's this guy. He has a hotel and he has people just like dying in it. It's like a killing hotel, right? It came
Hostel?
out. I don't know if it's called. I don't think it's Hostel. The theme of the movie poster is like red and black, so it's
Mm.
mainly like it's about half red and black, right? If you can find it, right? Cool, but it's basically just like he has like a bunch of traps. It's like you said, it's just like gore, right? It's not really scary.
Right.
Yeah, so yeah, that's it. I wasn't scared of it. It was just, oh, people die. Cool.
Yeah.
For me, it was like it was like one of the movies that I mentioned earlier, Under the Shadow, where I wasn't particularly like scared of it, but I really really liked it. It was super interesting, super gripping, and
Mhm.
it was one of those movies that I would rewatch. And I think another one would be Shudder. There was an American version, and there was also the original like Thai version that I saw recently, actually, that I didn't realize was a remake. But like seen the American version so long ago that watching it, I could feel like I sort of understood what was going on, but I didn't realize until the end. Oh, wait a minute, I know this. I've seen this redone before.
Yeah, I like
Mm,
Shudder. Shudder was good.
Yeah.
yeah, I can't find the movie I'm talking about, you guys. I'm sorry. It was okay. Another 6 out of 10. It's if you don't watch it, it's whatever. If you watch it, then cool, right? Um, but yeah, it's like gore horror. There wasn't
Right.
really. What do you think about first-person horror movies? Is there such thing?
Yes.
I guess you could do like the found footage stuff, Blair
Oh,
Witch, that kind of thing.
Garbage.
I saw the most recent. It is not at all new, right? But it's like the most recent, right? The Blair Witch, right?
Mm-hmm.
I heard the first one was much better, right? But I saw the second one. Let me tell you, I forgot all about it. So make of that what you will. If I forget a horror movie, it likely wasn't that good, right? I don't. If you ask me to recall anything from the movie, it will be, oh, someone's looking at a corner and they can't turn around. That's it. Yeah. I don't
Yeah,
know.
they're garbage. I don't like them.
Mm.
I
There's
can
also
appreciate Blair Witch. I also didn't like it as much.
yeah,
Okay.
there's also those movies. What are they with the ghosts that pop out and yet the whole thing is done through security camera footage and stuff like that.
Right.
I'm just bleh.
I feel
Yeah.
like
They give me motion sickness because people are running around with cameras in their hands, and I'm like, oh god.
Cloverfield. Yep.
actually, when I when I saw Blair Witch, my friends and I, we couldn't help but just kept making fun of it, right? It's like anytime a teenager has like a very teenager moment, it's like, oh wow, that's so relatable. I'm gonna be so sad when he dies. We kept making fun of the cast because they weren't likable at all, right? Um, but yeah, it had its. Oh, the more I'm talking about it, the more I remember. It had its moments. It wasn't great though. 5, 6, right?
You are so generous.
Okay. Oh, okay, but like
IGN reviewers up in here.
for a 5, it means I'm feeling super indifferent about it, right? Like I didn't gain anything, I didn't lose anything. Nor do I feel like I lost time. It was just an experience, right? 1 or zeros would be like, okay, this is an absolute waste of time. I'm not so harsh on that for many things.
I would
Okay.
say with Blair Witch, I give him a -3.
Hey.
Not only did they waste my time, but I'm actively petitioning to get it back.
It's like you'd have to pay me to watch it, right? For you to get anything out of it. That's funny. That's funny. I did hear the first one was better, so maybe I'll check
I
it
don't
out.
know. I don't see how much. I can't imagine how not likable the second one, or the remake or the sequel or whatever the heck it was, must have been if the first one was better. Because for me, it's just like I understood about halfway in that it was going to be a slow burn,
Mhm.
but I expect a burn and not just slow.
Right.
know?
Right.
It didn't feel like there was any payoff at all for me at the end of it, so I didn't like it.
It's totally fair. That's totally fair.
You just like worst thing to end on because now I'm like angry at Blair Witch. We're gonna walk away and I'm just gonna be like, that Blair Witch, take it. So mad now.
I really do hope like they do make a first person horror movie that just really lands, right? Maybe there is, and I haven't seen it, right?
Right. It's possible. It could be out there.
Yeah. So I'd have to do some searching around.
Well, when you find it, let me know. But I feel like you're chasing a golden goose.
Gotcha.
All right. Well, thank you all for tuning into this week's episode. And a special thank you to everyone who submitted in their questions. Don't forget, if you're interested in being in a future episode, you can find it in the Google Forums, in the announcements, or the podcast discussions. All right. And thank you guys for having a great discussion with me. I really enjoyed this.
Thanks for talking with us as well, Leigh.
Yeah, it was super fun. Nice getting to know you guys more.
All right. Well, see you next week and have a great rest of your day.
Goodbye, everybody.
Ciao.